What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony alongside the best Big Three account in the universe, Big3 News, my guy Will. Happy New Year, everyone. Will, how's your 2021 going so far? Sounds weird to say.
2021, it's crazy. The clock struck midnight and all of the problems in my life disappeared, you know. And so I'm just really happy that I've decided to now look at my life on a yearly basis where all of my life problems are just because of the year we're in. And, you know,
Not just yours, but everybody's life problems. They're just
all of our
gone.
problems are just gone now that 2021 is in, but now not anymore because now 2021 is actually looking like 2020 all over again. So from
I
the
think 2020
second
actually
week in
got the better
January,
start.
yeah. So from the second week in January, I've already decided that for me and everyone else, this year is not going to be good.
Oh, playing a little
You
bit
see
of
how
reverse
stupid that
psychology,
sounds,
hopefully.
people? You see how stupid that sounds to people? My God. I saw people tweet about that like, oh, 2021 is just going to be 2020 all over again. Bro, it is the second week in January and it
Yeah,
means nothing.
2020. Hey, we
It
thought we
means
had a
nothing.
good first 2 months were really good, and then we
That's
saw
true.
how all that played out. So
That's
we'll
true.
see. Maybe a little reverse psychology, maybe a little turn of the tables. Maybe 2020 is just feeding a little bit of the rest of the terrors that we face into 2021. Just so we wouldn't forget the year or anything. That being said, appreciate everyone joining us for the first show of 2021. Excited to get going. Hopefully, we see the return of the league this year. We're definitely geared up and awaiting
That's
news from
true.
that.
That's
And
something we can say this year. We can
yeah,
say there are big three games this year. We couldn't have said that last year. There will be big three games this year. So I feel like the worst is behind us.
that's true. And I think we're going to have a great show today. A little bit of a different show. We have a guest on the back end where we're just kind of chopping it up, talking some basketball, and going to do a little bit of the same here at the beginning. But before we get into all of that, as always, if you want to find the show, it's at Fourth Man Pod. If you want to find Big3 News, Big3 News. If you want to find my personal, it's at A_Siggy. Also, don't forget we're on YouTube now, so you can actually see our faces. You can watch the show. It's youtube.com/fourthmanpod. And for those tuning in on Dash Radio, you're the first to hear this. Appreciate you if you're a new listener or if you're listening again for the second or third or fourth time. We appreciate you guys, as always, on Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. I was making sure I did not say what I said last week. If you want to hear that, if you want to hear what I said last week about repeat listeners, tune into last week's episode as well. All right, let's jump into it. So, Will, you posted first off, props to you on the graphic. It looks dope. I think it's probably one of your top 5 graphics that you've ever posted. But
Wow, really? You think so?
I think it looks great. Like, not gonna
Thank
lie to you, it
you.
looks really good. And I think there's some bold takes, but I think realistic takes that you made to kind of map out 2021 how you think it would go. Obviously, like you said, we're still in the first or second, or we're in the second week of January, so everything can still come out to play. But like January window is closing. But you kind of went through every month, and you're like this. You kind of predicted what would happen every month. Starting from January, you said the league announces their players and contingencies to play in the summer of 2021, and then you rounded out in December with the take that the Big Three announces they plan to extend to 16 teams, so another expansion 2
Yeah,
years
so I
after.
mean, we can go month by month with this if you
Let's
want
go
to.
month by month.
Basically, I just thought that, a good way to start the year is maybe just give one brief, this isn't not teasing anything. This isn't any inside info. This is just something that I think is a realistic possibility. My prediction, I'm putting my name to it, that I think is something that we can, I don't want to say expect, but something that may happen
Mm-hmm.
for 1 month of each of the big three.
Yeah, and I think for new listeners or people who are gearing up to watch the Big Three the first time in 2021, I think this is a good outline. Even if it's not right on par with exactly what's going to happen, you can kind of get a good
Absolutely.
understanding of how everything works. So let's start with the month of January. The league announces their plan and contingencies, like I said, to play in the summer of 2021, and also the Big Brother TV show is set to debut in March. Okay, we're in the second week of January right now. So we're not feeling great because Jeff K didn't give us any Christmas gifts this year by dropping some Big 3 news. However,
Yeah.
I still think it's a realistic possibility because I was actually going back and looking at some of the news that they've announced in January. And it seems like that
Historically,
historically, tends to fall and around like the 20 to the 31st of January, like big news starts to happen. So I think that's a realistic possibility. And in February, you said the basketball world erupts as Dwayne Wade decides to join the Big Three. Now it seems like there's a lot of people that are out for his services, but I still think January is a strong possibility that we figure out what's going to happen.
Well, here, let me break down sort of my
let me hear you
process behind this. So basically what I'm thinking is, and I tried to keep this very brief, but I can go into everything a little bit more. Basically, I might have been a little bit overzealous with the TV show because the fact that we haven't heard anything, you'd think we'd hear something if a TV show was set to debut in 2 months. But I do still think we're getting this TV show at some point. Even if it's next year, I still think we're going to get some sort of update on this TV show. But I still think that this is the month where we're going to hear that announcement. I mean, February would be kind of crazy, It would be kind of very close, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to say that I would be concerned, and I definitely don't know if I'm not pushing the panic button, but I'm alerting I'm refreshing myself on where the panic button is in the room. I'm not touching it. It's not coming out of the case, but I'm just reviewing my paperwork, so we are all familiar with where the panic button is in case someone needs to press it.
We're not like shuffling around a lot of papers looking for the panic button.
That's what I mean. We're just, it's like a fire escape thing, a drill. We're going over our drills. We're just making sure that we're all prepared.
Like pretending to press a button. They're like, okay, don't actually press it. Gotcha. Yeah. So exactly. I think what you said is right. I think the TV show is going to happen. They have an agreement in place with the producers from Big Brother. So usually when there's an agreement in place,
usually happens. Yeah.
Usually happens. I do think that you're right in the sense that I don't think it will happen in March because there's just not enough preparation. And honestly, there's just not a lot of advertisement for a new show. However, I do think that we're still getting news this month. It sounds like, this is a timeline we're working on for everyone listening. We're working on the timeline of this being in the summer still. We don't know if it's the early summer or the late summer. But Jeff Kwanowitz did come out and say that he's expecting an exciting 2021 summer. So whether it's in June or whether it's in August, it sounds like it's going to be a summer thing. We just don't know how fast paced it might be. That being said, if you're going to have a league in the summer, if you're still going to have tryouts, that's the expectation. There's got to be some sort of news plan in place, in order for this to be a successful year. We don't just want, from my point of view, I don't want this to necessarily just be like a year where it's just rebooted and it's back on the scene. Like I want this to be another successful season. I want us to kind of build off of what they did in 2019. So if they're going to have a plan, it needs to be now, or it needs to be in a couple of weeks, at least by February. The Dwayne Wade thing, that's a whole nother topic. It sounds like the TBT is making moves. It sounds like the TBT is referencing Dwayne Wade every month. And right now, if I were going to place a bet on it where he would play Big 3 or the TBT, I'd probably say the TBT.
Ooh, you hurt my heart with that.
I hate to say that because I know there's a lot of people in the Big 3 or a couple people that have said he would come and play. But
I can't necessarily blame you because the TBT seems to be the one that, has at least been very vocal about what their plan is. I mean, they're accepting new teams. They just announced the Murray State alumni team. Like they're going all systems go. Now I know that their season starts. Actually, I don't even know when their season starts, but I think it's before the Big 3.
I think so too.
But no, listen, you're right. I can't blame you for thinking that way. But here's my thought process behind this.
Okay.
I think that if they make an announcement in January, okay, what's the Big 3 season going to look like? Is it a bubble? Is it not? Where is it going to be played? You know what I mean? Things like that. This is the stuff we got to figure out. Once you can figure that out, I already know for a fact that there are guys, I've talked to guys who are saying, yo, are you playing the Big 3 yet? I got to wait and see what it looks like, right? Excuse me.
Heard that today from somebody.
I'm not going to commit. Right. I'm not going to commit to it until I know what it looks like. All right. Well, I'm hoping that this month is the month we figure that out what's going to look like. When that happens, okay, boom. Then the floodgates are going to open. Whether splash alerts from me, splash alerts from you, splash alerts from the league itself, guys are going to be hitting up our DM saying, all right, I'm playing. Or I'm not playing, right? But as soon as we get that announcement, as soon as people know what the league's going to look like, I have a feeling that the floodgates are going to open.
That's a really good
point. And then
point.
I think if you're the Big 3, exactly what you just said, the TBT, other people are very vying for his services. you got to go out there. You got to make a splash.
Yeah.
You
And
missed
and
out
who's
on a
to
year.
say? Well,
Yeah.
who's to say that there's not some talks in the background, right? I mean, like you said, the
Right.
floodgates
Right.
could open. They could have a ton of things in place, and they're just like, hey, just don't say anything about this yet. That just from our point of view, we're just not seeing that.
I got to be 100% honest with you, and this isn't me being cocky. I don't. I think that if there were talks, at least with the players, I think we would know about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Because I've asked guys who, if you're like, all right, well, if they're not telling them, then who are they telling?
well, like I told you, off camera, I think I was telling you that a couple of days ago about Michael Rappaport being on all the Smoke podcasts.
Right.
Him and even Steven Jackson kind of reflecting on the good times of the Big 3.
Mm-hmm.
He was hoping it would be back. Now, I don't know if that's just like noise, throw the Big 3 in there somewhere. So, on a big platform, I just want the name to be at the top of people's minds. Or if he genuinely doesn't know, it's just
I don't
hard
think
to
he
say.
does.
But
I think
I
he
don't think he
genuinely
does either.
doesn't. And I've talked to guys. I'll be fair. I haven't talked to guys recently. I haven't talked to guys since, let's say, Thanksgiving. But people have told me the general impression is that nobody really knows what's going on at this point. And by that, I mean, I think people are under the assumption that it's coming back just the same way that you and I are. They've gotten the same information that we have. And they're like, okay, it sounds like it's coming back. But nobody is like, okay, yeah, they're trying to do this.
Gotcha.
I haven't heard that
I
from
haven't
anybody.
either.
And there are guys who, and again, I'm not trying to sound cocky. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm the one with all the sources. I'm just saying if I've talked to people where, all right, well, if they don't know, then who does know?
Right.
And it sounds like it's only very internally within the league front offices at this point. So, but back to what I was saying about February, you got to make a splash, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to get people back on this hype train. Like last season, it was Joe Johnson was a huge signing, but I think even like a bigger signing was like Gilbert Arenas, right? Like he was really the big signing of season 3.
Right.
Season 2, I would say it was probably like Amari Stoudemire, Nate Robinson.
Yeah.
Those two guys going to Tri-State was absolutely crazy. And then season 1,
Baron
obviously
Davis.
Baron Davis was another one. And then season 1, obviously it was Allen Iverson and everyone else, literally everyone else in the league.
Yeah.
So I think you got to have a big guy this offseason. And, we'll talk about it. I think we're going to talk about it maybe on a later episode because it is still just a developing story. So we want to make sure we get all the facts right. But the G League took a lot of guys, so we don't know what their availability is going to look like this summer. They just took a lot of guys who we were eyeing up for the Big 3. So I think Dwayne Wade has been a guy that sort of checks a lot of boxes and he continues to do so. And like, I just saw videos of him working out with his son.
Mm-hmm.
He looks good to go. He looks ready to play. He's name dropped the Big 3 even on occasion. So if that's the guy, you got to go out and get him. And I think February is the month that it happens.
Hey, I'm hoping I'm wrong. Let's just put it that way. I'm hoping that wrong. But
yeah,
when you say you think he's one of the only guys available for the Big 3 with everyone else going to the G League, or one of the fewer big names, I should say, I'm going to say on the contrary, as we head into March and segue here, where you said the Big 3 Not in My House debuts, basketball's funniest best friends, Gilbert Arenas and Nick Young, let their personality shine. Nick Young, I mean, I know he's playing overseas, but I would still think that's a big get. And if they're playing together for enemies, I mean, I don't know how everything translates on the court, but that's going to bring some eyes to the Big 3 in the summer if Nick Young and Gilbert Arenas are playing side by side.
No, you're right. I mean, listen, is Gilbert Arenas, I mean, I agree with you. I think he would be a big get, but is he a marquee name? I don't know. I don't know what the Big 3 is going to look like when we come back. I don't know what the talent level is going to be at. Is it going to be at the level it was season 3? I would hope so. Is it going to be a little bit higher? I would hope so. But at this moment, I don't know.
The way I look at it, so Nick Young, for me, it's like, okay, player-wise or, as a player, maybe not. Maybe he's not on the same level as someone like Gilbert Arenas or Joe Johnson was in the past. However, that being said, someone that's you see all the time on social media making comments or tweets or posts. He's a guy who's got a freaking meme, like a very popular meme with his face on it.
He has two.
He's been on a TV. He's been on a TV show. He's been on Catfish. So it's not a guy that's like, I would even say maybe he's a guy that's even more known outside of basketball that draws different viewers in.
That's true.
So that being said, if they do have the reality show, I think it's going to be great for the Big 3. But I think in that sense, Nick Young could be a big name for them. None's bigger than Dwayne Wade, but I think it could be a
that's
big
fair.
name for him.
I guess I'll retract that statement. He would be a big get, especially even just for like promoting everything on social media and just helping get the league out there. I agree with you. All right, I'll take that back. I don't think. Listen, I will say this: if Nick Young is the biggest name you get in an offseason, I'd be like, but
Maybe.
But I don't want to underestimate the impact that he would have in the league. So I agree with you there.
And it could be that Nick Young might be the biggest offseason signing, but there could be a lot of guys on the same level as Nick Young that they get. They could get maybe like 5 or 6 guys on Nick levels.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Range or level. So April, you said the 2021 Big 3 schedule is announced, featuring mainly cities that allow a limited capacity of fans and arenas. If news does drop that the Big 3 is returning, I think that's the only fair assessment to make, that you got to give fans at least a couple months if you are going to play with limited fan base.
I mean, listen, they said that one of the main reasons why they didn't do a 2020 season was because they didn't want to do it without fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that when you come back, you're doing it with fans, and there are places. I mean, the Nets are playing the Grizzlies right now. There are fans in the arena. They were set to debut in Memphis, so I would assume that Memphis is probably going to be on the schedule. I think
probably going to be on the schedule.
Portland, you said?
I would say Florida, because
Florida,
the Raptors playing in Toronto. Mm-hmm. I think they have some fans maybe at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game.
Yeah, so I mean, you could keep it right in state, go from Tampa, Miami.
Good point.
Somebody said, and I don't know what the restrictions look like down there. Somebody said Puerto Rico in one of my comments. Puerto Rico, I don't know. Maybe that's the situation. I think Golden State is allowing fans eventually. Indiana is allowing fans.
Yeah, so, I've heard a lot about Indiana. Yeah, so
if they're doing it for the NBA, then you can absolutely do this for the Big 3. And maybe unfortunately, I know they were planning these big like concert series, and like it's like not even like a set of games. It's like the event. Maybe you can't do it this summer. Maybe all of that has to wait till next summer. Mm-hmm. But if you kick this can down the road a year because you wanted fans, then in my opinion, places like LA, New York, they're off the schedule. Mm-hmm. At least for this year, just because I don't know, man. I don't know what the world's gonna look like in April, but
in a like a tour like setting that the Big 3 does, why would you want to play in LA or New York if there's going to be no fans?
Right, exactly, 110%.
So correct. I mean, you can have it on TV and say it's in New York, playing at Barclays Center, playing at Staples Center, but what's really the point if there's no one actually enjoying it? So that being said, I think April is going to be the perfect time to release that schedule. Segue into May, where you said that's when the combine will be featuring many pro and amateur players. However, the Big 3 draft, which will be usually the day after the combine is the draft.
All in May.
Still skews to value experience over potential. And look, we've seen it already in a couple drafts. I don't think anything changes there, even with the circumstances going on. In June, the Big 3 finally returns with triplets and killer threes kicking off the season in Dallas. Saw Power and Three's company last year after they played in the championship. I think that'd be a lot of fun, depending on who's returning. That's going to be a different Killer Threes team. We've definitely seen, on social media where guys like Dante Green, seems like Frank Nitti, a couple of guys that would return to Killer Threes, but we know one guy, at least before all this started happening, we know one guy that wasn't going to be there, and that was Captain Steven Jackson. He was going to be a coach of Trilogy. So that's going to be interesting because I think triplets keeps the same core, whereas
it'll be interesting to see who comes back. I think Joe's gonna be back. Moon's gonna be back. Al Jefferson, I haven't heard anything about Al Jefferson, but I think triplets are mainly gonna look very similar to the team that won it all. Pargo as well. Killer Threes, I think Killer Threes are gonna need to get a captain. They were one of those teams who we were looking at last year, like, all right, who's their big signing gonna be? Because they're gonna need somebody. So it's gonna be very interested to see who they get, and I think Frank Nitti has a ton of connections.
Yeah.
So he's somebody who I'm very intrigued to see who they recruit to replace Steven Jackson.
It's so crazy because I'm just looking back at 2019. Killer Threes were about to walk into the season with Steven Jackson, Al Harrington, and Metta World Peace.
Yeah.
They ended up walking into the season making Frank Nitti a co-captain, so he's taken out of the draft. And Josh Powell ended up getting moved up from number 4 overall pick to co-captain. So it's just crazy how all that.
They still made the championship.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So July, with the Big Three season in full swing, the clear race for MVP is between Joe Johnson and Dwayne Wade. I think you got a reaction out of Joe on that one, didn't you?
Joe did not like this one. Joe found this, I'm assuming he's talking about this one. He found this one a little humorous.
He didn't give you too much explanation on that one.
No. Listen, I think at the end of the day, I talked about this in a previous episode. I think you got to create a rivalry for Joe Johnson, right? If Joe Johnson is running away with MVP every year, it's incredible for Joe, good for Joe, but it's not necessarily good for the league. So if you can have Dwayne Wade go in there and it's this clear back and forth where, that would honestly be the dream. That would be the dream season to come back and you have two such prolific names dueling it out for MVP. So that's my prediction.
And I really like that the Big Three each year they've had a different MVP. I think it keeps everybody on their toes and keeps things exciting.
And different champions and different runner-ups.
Yeah, I know. That's
ever gotten to the championship twice. Yeah.
We've seen a couple teams go to the playoffs every year, but we haven't seen any team go to the championship twice. So Joe could definitely be laughing at the August prediction where you said the Big Three season.
He might be laughing at that one. Yeah.
in New Orleans as Bivouac defeats Trilogy in the championship. I wish Will Bynum would have gotten in on this conversation, but I'm assuming that Joe is probably laughing at this one.
He might be. Yeah.
No way they're not running it back is his thought process.
I mean, honestly, my thought process behind this is, listen, this is a way too early prediction. But Bivouac, and especially Will Bynum, looked very good towards the end of the season. They should have been the second expansion team to make the playoffs if they didn't blow a trap game to Ball Hogs last week of the season. Shout out Xavier Silas. But, so I have them doing very good. We've seen that guys historically play guys who do well their first season, the Big Three, besides maybe a couple of exceptions, then play extremely well the next season, especially scorers. So if Will Bynum is following that track, Will Bynum might very well end up being an MVP candidate himself.
Ooh.
And then Trilogy right now might have the best captains in James White, David Hawkins, and Zach Randolph. So until we see what these teams look like, Trilogy, in my opinion, is a title contender. So I just put, in my opinion, I think Bivouac was a fun one to put in there because I know I've been joking around that they're my sleeper, but I really do believe they're going to be very good.
They had Josh Smith, Mo Spates was coming on. I mean, that was going to be a strong team.
It was going to be a very strong team. So
Great
I
coach.
think those are so I think, going off of the pattern that we haven't had any repeat appearances in the finals yet, Trilogy would be the first as per this, and I think Bivouac would be the champions.
I like it. I really like it, actually. I'm really rooting for Bivouac just because of that trap game. Like, obviously, it was fun to see Ball Hogs win, but, man, I was excited to see Bivouac in the playoffs there.
Yeah.
So, September, October, you said September will be quiet, but guys will announce retirement from the league. Definitely think that's a valid reasoning. I mean, it just seems like season 4 after 4 years, maybe for some of these guys are like, all right, we just wanted the league to return. We wanted to end on our own terms. And we're going to see a new wave of guys come in, especially
I unfortunately think that's going to be, I think that's going to be a lot of guys. I think a lot of guys, unfortunately not too many, but I think a lot of people are going to be like, all right, I hung out for a year. I didn't do anything for a year, and I knew the Big 3 was coming back, so I had an obligation to my teammates, or maybe I really was looking forward to it coming back. So now it's back there. But you know what? I think that's it for me.
Well, I just think we're going to see a younger crowd too. I mean,
I agree.
If the age restrictions are lowered like they are. So October, you said you think Big Brother would be renewed for 2022. I actually think this might be a time where the show could start in October. I know that you're pushing against football season, but hey, we're looking at this more like a reality show than we are sports.
Yeah, I mean, The Bachelor goes up against football, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so everyone loves reality TV. I think this would be a good time to start it. November, the Big 3 announces their intentions to return to China in early 2022 for a brief series.
Before we go against November, I do apologize. I just want to make sure in October we highlight one thing.
Okay.
Where I think eventually, so the main prediction that I made in there was,
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see that end part.
Yeah, no, all good. The results of the show will determine the draft order for the following season. So I think that they really want – first of all, we already know they don't give a shit about the draft order. They do not care. So I think this is a fun way to raise the stakes of this Big Brother show. So if each team sends a representative, you're like, listen, bro, you got to win this so that we get the number one pick.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I didn't really like the strategy they did where it was kind of they mixed it up or a lottery style for each round. So I think what better way to make things enticing than lay it out all on the line on live TV or on just television in general. Okay, I like that a lot. That could make things really interesting. Okay. In November, the Big 3 announces their intentions to return to China in early 2022 for a brief series of all-star games, which they planned to do back in 2019. They also announced plans to launch a CBA version of the Big 3 by 2025. That's an interesting one. What led you to thinking or coming up with that idea? So just one where you're like, I'm feeling November, or just an idea really popped in your head?
I'm thinking, all right, where is the Big 3 at this point? So season 4 was hopefully a success. So now we're building off of that momentum. I know there was a conference call, God, maybe even 2 years ago at this point, or no, actually probably about a year ago, where they announced Fireball 3 and they held a conference call that night. And they said, someone said, what is the long-term goals with the Big 3? And they said, I think this was right around when the China tour got canceled. And they said, are you going back to China? They said, like, absolutely, not a doubt. And then they said, well, what about besides China? What about Europe? What about Australia? What about South America? And they said, absolutely. And they said, we'd love to have a league. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, by the way, this is a weird thing, but like Big 3 Australia has been on LinkedIn like for 2 years. Like people apparently work for Big 3 Australia.
I didn't even know they had like a subsidiary in Australia.
Neither did I. And I don't even know if it's legit, but
okay.
That's that. But anyway, do what you want with that information. But so basically, I think China is obviously one that they're eyeing. Yeah, maybe. China's one that they're eyeing. And I think China, China loves basketball just as much as the Americas, really, probably more than Europe at this point. That's probably where the majority of the market size comes from with basketball is North America and then Asia, respectively.
Yeah.
But so I think the CBA would be the perfect league to now try another Big 3. And I think it's going to be in a decent time from now. So I gave them about, 3-4 years at this point to do it. And then I think they're going to be returning to China for the All-Star Tour in 2022 to get people acclimated to what the Big 3 is. What's the idea of it? Oh, it's 3v3. It's these guys who once played but don't play anymore, things like that. So, I think, trying to fill November, absolutely. But I think it's something realistic.
I do too. I think there's a lot of valid things you said in there. China loves basketball. I think there's already a relationship that they try to form there or is formed. They want to take this thing international. So I think it makes sense. And I think ultimately they want this all-star tour to happen. Like they tried a couple times. Obviously some things came up that made it impossible for them to do. But I think they want to make this happen. I think, like we were talking about agreements, there's some kind of an agreement in place or it's going to happen. Out of this post, though, I would say my favorite part of it was the December part because I get really excited about expansion, like new teams and the expansion draft or whatever. So you said the Big 3 announces they plan to extend to 16 teams for the 2022 season, creating 2 18 divisions with the top 3 in each making the playoffs. So a lot of things to take from this. There's an expansion and playoff teams, expansion in the league.
Yes.
Just similar to what happened 2 years ago. So it was like 2 years, add 4 more teams, 2 more years, add 2 or 4 more teams. You're creating divisions, which just makes things a little bit more enticing and doesn't make it like you're fighting the whole league. And also teams could go into the playoffs potentially not playing each other. Like most of the time, every team plays each other. So we kind of are looking at a repeat battle or a revenge battle. Where I really like that there's potential that each team goes up against each other and they have no idea really their play style outside of maybe some film or watching them, that week. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at other leagues, right? And I mean, obviously basketball is different because basketball you get the chance to play everybody, but it's an 82-game season. But I think honestly, from a seasonal structure, the Big 3 is most similar to the NFL, right? So you have like, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
That's a good point.
A wild card matchup this weekend.
So like the Colts and Bills. Oh, I'm sorry. That's happened.
Has
maybe.
that happened? What about like Saints and Bears? Did the Saints ever play the Bears?
I think they did. So I think Colts and Bills maybe
All right,
didn't
then. So
happen,
then
but
forget us then. But no, but absolutely, the excitement, a lot of excitement comes from teams you haven't seen before, and it's a playoff matchup. And like you look at the NFC East this year, right, or other divisions where like the NFC East was crap all year, but it got extremely exciting towards the end because it was these teams, battling it out for like, all right, like I have to beat you, otherwise you make it and I don't.
yeah.
And that's how
Doug
rivalries
Peterson
are formed.
Doug Peterson said, "Yeah, I don't
Don't
want to
say
make
that
it
name
too
on this
exciting."
podcast. Don't say that name on this podcast. I'm having too good of a time. But that's how rivalries are formed, right? And that's how people pick sides, and that's how people get loyal to teams.
And that's a big
Like,
thing you've been an advocate for, right? Is
right.
team loyalty.
So like you're a Jets fan, right? The
Sadly,
only
yes.
reason that you have an issue with the Miami Dolphins is because when they make the playoffs, you don't.
Yeah. Bills,
if the Miami
Patriots,
Dolphins were in the NFC East, they would be like the Washington football team to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, do you give a damn about the Washington football team?
No, not one.
Exactly,
bit.
because they have no effect on you. Just like how I don't give a damn about the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
If you're, let's say, Three's Company, we have to beat Ghost Bowlers this weekend, or we have to win and hope Ghost Bowlers lose. And then if Ghost Bowlers decide we're going to take out our star rookie quarterback in a 3-point game because we've already made the playoffs and we've decided that we're just going to screw over the Giants, then all the fans are going to get pissed. And then that's how rivalries are formed. And that's how fan bases are made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and then in terms of this, I decided how much do I really want to extend the playoff format to 8 teams. I thought 8 teams was a little much because that means half the league makes it and the other half doesn't.
I like
so I just did 3, battle. And then the top seed getting a bye. Just, you reward the top seed basically.
So just because they would be in 2 different divisions, those two teams, like those teams would still play in the playoffs, like the top 3. So you're saying the top 2 teams would get their byes, and then each team would play each other. So cross
1 and 1 would get their byes, and then 2 would play 3, and the winner of that would play 1 in the semifinals, and then the winner would meet.
Gotcha. So 2 wouldn't play the 3 in another division. It'd be like 2 and 3 in that same division.
Correct. Yeah, it'd almost be like the East and the West.
Okay. Ooh, I like that. So that could be really interesting because like you said, you don't get a lot of teams that play each other for the first time, and you also don't get, like in the Big 3, I don't feel like you get a lot of very important matchups like outside of season 3. You don't get a lot of important matchups that have playoff implications. Right.
Well, right. It's usually only very normally seeding, right? So when Power plays triplets, or like when I remember that first season when Trilogy played 3-headed monsters, or when it's like 2 undefeated teams or 2 teams with the same record. Absolutely.
Like season 3 was the exception where like Ball Hogs did the unthinkable and beat Bivouac, and then all hell broke loose. Like every 4-4 team was like, okay, now I got to win, or now I need them to lose. Like, oh, there's actually a chance,
But how exciting was that?
Yeah, no, exactly.
For like
that makes it a lot of fun. Yeah.
This could do it now. You could prolong that for a few weeks.
Yeah, I think that would lead to a lot of excitement. And plus just like expanding teams. Like we've seen this league get like the draft and the combine has just been full of potential players. We've seen a lot of people brought in when there's injuries or some guy can't play. And that's just like that's just like the beginning of it. Like there's a lot of people out there that we still hope to see play or still waiting for their turn to play and might not get it because not enough guys are injured or there's not a lot of openings.
Yeah. No, 110%. And I mean, think of it like this, right? I just think of it like, you look at this and how just like real is this, right? Okay. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a diehard Suns fan. I love Amari Stoudemire. So I love Amari Stoudemire. So therefore I'm a Tri-State fan. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I need Tri-State. I really want Tri-State to win. I really need Tri-State to beat, aliens. Oh, well, I'm from Indiana and I like Andre Owens. So I want aliens to win because only one of us is making the playoffs because we're in the same division. Well, screw you. Oh, well, screw you. Boom. Aliens and Tri-State have beef.
Yeah. Hey, I would love if they were in the same division. I would love that. I mean,
that's what I mean. That's how it works. Yeah.
We need this. Like, I'm hoping by that time we have some like Instagram pages solely for alien. I mean, we have a little bit of that, but I don't feel like we have enough of it.
No.
Where where like in the NBA, you got a ton of different accounts for the Bulls alone or the Knicks alone. Like every sad Knicks fan makes a Knicks Instagram page and talks about their sorrows and weeps about everything, and they all come together, you know, like, so all in all, those are your predictions. And I guess a good thing for us to do during the, like throughout the year, month to month, would just see, you know, is this one,
you can go back and look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you predict this right? Did you predict this wrong?
I'm calling a 2 over under. I'm going to set the line at 5.5.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. All bookies. You heard this right here. Set your lines, set your markings. Let's make some plays. I think that's reasonable though. I think definitely that if 5 of those can come true, I think it's a solid 2021 year, despite what everyone's saying about the first 2 weeks of it. All that being said, that's it for the first half of this episode. Like I said, we have a fun guest on, Isaiah. He is from the Cut the Deck podcast, where he talks a lot of basketball and interviews a lot of basketball minds and content creators. So we just kind of chop it up with him and talk a little bit about everything going on between the G League and the start of the NBA, do a little start, sit, cut. So we appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Like, you know, before we get into that, you know, please subscribe, leave 5 stars, leave feedback. Like we said, we would love feedback on what we're doing right or what you like and maybe what you'd like us to change up. So again, we appreciate everyone who has tuned in, and let's get to Isaiah from Cut the Deck. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. We're excited to welcome on Isaiah from the Cut the Deck podcast. Does a lot of good stuff in his space and on Instagram. And we appreciate you dropping by, bro. How you feeling?
Man, I'm good, man. Just ready to talk some basketball for the most part, man. The season up started. You know, it's still at the top of the semester. Like, I'm just kind of ready to talk hoop a little bit.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to have you on. And yeah, we're excited to get into it too. Obviously, with the Big 3, we're just trying to find different ways to continue to talk about basketball and until the league returns here. And one thing that recently just came out was about the G League, you know, kind of jumping into this bubble setting, having a lot of younger guys in there, a lot of G League vets, but also a lot of NBA veterans were invited to the bubble. And, you know, for us, looking at the guys who joined, guys like Lance Stevenson, Jeremy Lin, even someone like Jello, like LiAngelo Ball, those were guys that, you know, we thought maybe could potentially play in the Big 3 in 2021. Now we're a little unsure about it, but overall, what's your take of like the NBA vets joining the G League bubble here and potentially getting another shot in the NBA and just a different path?
Well, I was just reading the article. Shout out to Alex Kennedy of Hoops Hype. Well, he's previously of Hoops Hype. He does like some good articles. And I know that with the free agents, they do something like pre-draft like workouts. So I know, let's say a team like Houston, they don't have, I think the past few drafts, they didn't have a pick. So they would bring in free agents, they would bring in vets, they would bring in draft prospects and work them out. And so I think this is good for those vets or those people who are not on NBA teams or whatever the case may be, just to get some live run in front of the decision makers. So this is I think it's perfect, and it bodes well, especially for the guys who need to bounce up and down between the NBA and the G League, because not everybody is straight NBA, like ready for that action right out the gate. So sometimes you need a little bit less competition, you know, just to get some run in, you know, at some point, because that's how you get better, not just sitting on the bench, but you get better by playing. So
100%. And I think, you know, here in 2021, we're seeing that there's a new path every year. It seems like it's opening up in some way to get into the NBA with, you know, a bunch of influx of talent coming in. It's a crowded field and it's just harder to play, but everyone's just looking for an opportunity. And I think as successful as the bubble went, I think this is a great opportunity to see if something else can work in this kind of arena and setup. And like we saw in the bubble, a lot of guys had a lot of success because they were able to concentrate or whatever the case may be. As we, you know, we're kind of a couple weeks here in the NBA. What's your overall vibe of the league so far? Like, what have you been surprised by anything? What's kind of stood out to you so far, like in the early going?
Well, I know for my favorite team, the Raptors, I'm surprised by their start. I think we just blew a 1-5, lost to the Celtics. No, that was almost previous. No, I think we just lost to the Suns. So just watching, I just wonder, can Toronto get their juice back? But just, I'm glad to have basketball back in general. So I know you have college basketball, and there's NBA basketball. So we're just an influx of hoops, and that's exactly what I wanted.
So. What about the Raptors? I guess let's dive into them a little bit. So they said you're your team. You know, if you were to sort of, you know, take like a doctor medical approach from this and break this thing open, what's going on with the Raptors? What isn't working this season that maybe has been in the past?
You think about the role that Pascal Siakam was playing when you have a person, when you have the Serge Ibaka and the Marc Gasols, which you kind of play a different bit of a role. I know his role was even brought up another tier once Kawhi left, and now when Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka now gone, he is even brought up another like in the post. And so I know right now they got who's it, Aaron Baines, I think Chris Boucher. I think those are their guys, and Alex Len. But I mean, I don't know what's going on. It may be something personal, but Pascal Siakam is that's their bread and butter. Along with you got Kyle Lowry and you got Fred VanVleet. OG Anunoby, he's already who he is. Like he's an ascending player still, but he's a staple in their team. And I believe Malachi Flynn. So you got Malachi Flynn, Terrence Davis, Duane Hernandez is back. I don't know. The juice is just gone. I don't know. But I believe we could get it back. Nurse does a good job with that organization, but I believe we could get it back soon and at least still be in playoff contention for the East because the East has gotten better a lot. It's good, yeah. So it's just going to be hard for us to get. We got to hurry up and get back in tune fast. So, but I'm hoping we can.
And I think the most surprising thing about the East is that the way that these non-bubble teams have played. So like the Cavs and the Knicks and even like the Hornets to an extent, these teams that maybe, didn't get the invite. So they've sort of been sitting around doing nothing since like March or February, but they've come out of the gates red hot. Do you think maybe all that extra rest or maybe not being invited to the bubble, maybe did that play something into it?
I was just going to say is maybe the extra rest because I was looking at one of the guys I'm watching closely on the Knicks I don't know if you remember Omari Spellman from Villanova. Sure. And so I was thinking about when he came out in the draft, and you'll get what I'm saying as I go on. He came out in the draft. I know one of his concerns was the weight. He got traded from the Hawks to Golden State because of weight. And so I think in the midst of the bubble or right before the bubble or somewhere, he got traded to the Knicks. And so a team like the Knicks, I'm thinking like, oh man, like they're gonna, with them not being in the bubble with that extra rest, I'm like, man, it's gonna even be harder for a person like Omari, but just someone I just keep up with for whatever reason. But I know for what it's worth, he's shed some pounds and he's doing some things. But teams in the bubble, that extra rest is a good thing, but it could be a detriment as well. So it just all depends on how everybody works. So
it's definitely shaking things up, right? Definitely shaking everything up.
Right.
It's weird too. I mean, because kind of going back to the Raptors and their slow start here, we've seen a few teams that have gotten off the slow starts. The Raptors, even with losing Lowry, we'll see how they can kind of rebound from this. But you see other teams in the East, the Wizards made a big move and getting Russell Westbrook. They got off to a slow start. Pistons spent a dumb amount of money on just a ludicrous amount of money on anybody who was over 6'10", it felt like. And that has not paid off well. The Rockets, Timberwolves, Grizzlies, I feel like these are all teams that are, facing a little bit of injury or made a big move and it just hasn't worked out in their favor just yet. Out of some of these teams, though, I mean, and it could be someone outside of the ones I just named, who do you feel like is off to just a slow start and who do you feel like is we've kind of figured out how this team's going to be the rest of the year, like if they're good or not good at all?
Philly was in the bubble, so I don't think they. But I was gonna say Philly's doing better than expected. Mm-hmm. Slow start wise, I'm going with Minnesota because right now Josh Okogie is out with a hamstring, and so I believe they've been winning some. But I know once he gets back, like he's a solid guy. So once he gets back, they'll be in full go. I think is Cat still out?
I think Cat's a game time decision this weekend.
Yeah, I think he'll be back soon.
Right. So I'm hoping that he gets back in tune and they could get going because they could definitely make a run in the East. But I mean, everybody who's off to a slow start kind of got to pick it up because it's only 72 games and it's going to be somebody we don't expect on the outside looking in just because they started bad. Because every team we think is going to make the playoffs, somebody is not, and I don't know who it is. And then the West is even harder. And the East is too. So for the Timberwolves, I think they got to get going soon because you don't want to be on the outside looking in. But I believe they can make it. But when you got teams like the Suns, they're ascending. They're no longer the bottom feeder of the West. So it's just hard for everybody involved. So I think everybody who's making a slow start kind of got to pick the pace up and just figure out their thing, whether it be rotations or everything, who's going to do what. So it just all depends.
Let's talk about some of those ascending teams because, the Sixers you mentioned, the Suns you mentioned. Surprisingly, the Magic and Pacers are also a couple of teams that are doing well. I mean, are we talking, are the Knicks good right now? I mean, out of some of those teams, I mean, like, I'm trying to figure out who's like the pretender and who's the contender. I'm pretty surprised by Orlando just because, Markel Fultz was started off well, but now he's out. They're adding in their rookie from last year. I mean, there's just a couple of pieces that you weren't expecting them to be good. I actually thought they would be at the bottom. That hasn't been the case, but I mean, who are you kind of looking at as maybe some of the pretenders, and who do you feel like is actually legit?
The pretenders, and I hate to say this, I will go with Orlando. And there's actually something I'm looking to do soon called the soft tissue issue. I'm trying to figure out what's the problem with their training staff. You got Jonathan Isaac out with the ACL. You got Chumo Kiki. He came back from ACL. He was at Auburn. But let's just keep close. Let's just keep close monitor on him. You're looking at Mo Bamba. He had a stress fracture. And for those who don't know, stress fracture, I don't know if you remember the gruesome Kevin Ware injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Louisville, the pre-existing injury was the stress fracture. So when you don't take care of that stress fracture, that's when those gruesome, nasty breaks can happen. So, and then you got Markel Fultz just went out with an ACL. So I just wonder what's their issue there in the training room and whether they're getting a good tune-up before the season starts. And I know with Markel Fultz out, I don't know who's going to take the keys from a guard standpoint. Can Cole Anthony do it? It remains to be seen. So I would say they're a pretender. I would say the Hawks are serious.
Ooh.
The Hawks are not. The Hawks they're deep this year. They're well. They got veteran leadership in Rondo. Trae Young is also taking a step. The question about the Hawks is, I wonder what's really John Collins. Of course, he's the star that he is. I wonder is him not because he rejected the offer. I believe.
Yeah, and he hasn't been vibing with the play style there. He was saying that he disagreed with the way they were playing, running through Trae because they blew a couple 15-point leads there.
Wait, I thought him and Trae was a pretty good duo.
I thought they were too. Yeah, I actually just read that today. I mean,
John apparently something happened in film, right?
Yeah, something
John
about
Collins took exception to something in the film room.
He disagreed with Trae having so much usage with the ball. Felt like they should move the ball just a little bit more, especially when they had bleed. So. That's pretty wild. I wonder if he's kind of like the odd man out there, or if they just make it work there. I mean, I know they're young, but
yeah. I mean, I'll say this about that for John Collins to get some of those rim run type opportunities. That's gonna be because he's different. That shit was he a 4 or 5 stretch? Is he's playing the 4 or the 5?
He's mostly playing the 4 because of Capella playing the 5, but
they played Brooklyn the other night. He was playing a little bit of the 5 when they had Jeff Green in. With a small ball lineup.
So I think just affording him more rim running type opportunities, I think will bode well for the Hawks. So I could see that being the thing. And so, they have more than enough cap space to offer him a max contract. So I don't know what the issue was there. I hope it's not a thing of, you're not producing enough. It's like, it's John Collins, so yeah. It's shaky. I wonder what's the real issue. So he might be right if I'm looking at it.
I mean, I think it could be too. Just John Collins maybe feels like, he was the guy, he was the franchise guy. They go up and draft Trae Young. Maybe he feels like he wants to be the number one guy. I don't know. I don't know if it's like an ego thing or not, but it's something I think interesting to keep an eye on, especially for, like you said, an ascending team. They brought some pieces in and stuff. So
you can't have this happen right now when everybody's trying to get to the playoffs because they're easily the 5th, 4th seed. If you ask me, maybe not easily, but they'll be in the playoffs this year. But that's the last thing you want is this chemistry. Like I'm supposed to be the guy when I'm supposed to be the guy when you're like we're on a good ascension right now, on a good trajectory. So you don't want to mess that up with those type of things.
100%.
What is your opinion on? So now let's take another team coming out of the East that some people have playoff expectations. This is really a team that I'm very interested to see where they finish, which is the Washington Wizards. They arguably might have the most talented backcourt in the league with Westbrook and Beal, but then you have a bunch of other people who don't really have them projected as a playoff team. What's your outlook for that team?
The Wizards, I don't know. Indiana's good. Knicks are good. Like teams are. The East is not just a slouch. It's not a slouch like it's usually, or it's not slower than the West. Like the NBA is really good, and so when you have that talented backcourt, that front court. Who are their front court guys? Thomas Bryant and
Rui
Hachimura.
Yeah, Rui. Thomas and Rui. I believe Rui needs another year to become that, and that's not even reaching its ceiling. But we just got to see how everything goes. But with the Wizards, I don't even know their record right now. I haven't been keeping up with them in particular, but just based off what I've seen, their backcourt is fine. That front court presence and that identity has to kind of like take a stand and claim their stakes in order to be a viable team for the playoffs in the Eastern Conference because they're not slouch anymore. And that's just the God honest truth. So
do you think so? If you're Wizards GM, then you're keeping Beal. You're saying, I think we have some pieces here we can build around him, or do you ship him out and you get pieces for the future and you try to build around a young guy like Rui?
That's a lot of money off the books. When you look at Beal, I do know this. He's on a 2-year for $66 million, I believe. I think this is the second year of that contract. So next year he will sign if he stays with the Wizards, he will sign the biggest deal in NBA history, 5 years for $266 million. Now that's a lot of money. And I do know if you get Bradley Beal off the books, that's a lot of money. And so we just kind of figure out how can you, I guess you can make some things happen if you get Beal off the books. But will Beal turn down 5 for $266 against a job at the end of the day? It's a lot of money to turn down. So, but if I'm the GM, I kind of pitched that, hey, maybe we can move him, but it's no con in keeping him because he is one of the best scorers in the league.
Yeah, the return's kind of difficult on that too, I feel like, because are you going to get anybody back that's going to make up for what Beal has brought to Washington forever?
Yeah.
They still have Denny Abia there, who's I've watched like maybe 2 Wizards games. I was watching the Wizards Nets the other day, and I'm trying to figure out how he's trying to fit in. I just feel like they're struggling to make it work there. I mean, they got Rui, Thomas Bryant, West. I mean, there's a lot of guys that need the ball there. And so how is Denny going to fit in? Is he going to be that second facilitator? Is he going to be a guy who plays more that 3 and D? Is he going to be like a better scorer? I don't know. So they have an interesting core.
I think what Denny has to do is figure out what Russell and Bradley aren't doing. And that's how you add value. You figure out what are they doing and, okay, what else can I bring to the table that they're not doing? And it just adds a different dimension to the team. And then he'll also buy Rui and Thomas Bryant some time to kind of figure out their main fixtures in the game. So,
absolutely.
The storyline from this season that I've really been intriguing, which I guess I didn't expect, but it makes sense why it's coming out, is these expansion teams. So, word on they've talked about bringing expansion teams, specifically Seattle, back forever, but it really seems like it's starting to build momentum, especially with, I think it was like a $2.5 billion like team fee that the NBA would be asking for. So what is your opinion? What are the 2 cities that are due for an expansion team if we get them?
I wonder, LA doesn't need another team. Maybe Jersey, you could go. I know Seattle has to be one, but
Seattle's got to be one. Yeah,
I know how Dallas, Houston. There's Clippers. There's Lakers. There's Golden State. One of those main. I know Atlanta. We don't need another team. It has to be someone like a Jersey or somewhere. Or they thought about Vegas. Yeah. I just wonder how Vegas NBA players like the whole year they got to live there. So and then you got to balance it out. Seattle obviously be a Western Conference team. I think you give Jersey another team, just somewhere that can make some money. So
well, they talked too. They said if they do Seattle and Vegas, and maybe they would move like Memphis, and then I knew even the Pelicans to the East.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. I don't know why either of them are on the West, to be honest.
That's what. Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, Memphis is definitely over here. Yeah.
And I think too, if you're the Pelicans, right, like that's supposed to be one of the marquee teams for the next decade, because of Zion. So if you get him on the East Coast, that's a lot more publicity than him, playing in a West team where he's not even projected to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard for him to make an All-Star in the West because
that's true. Yeah.
So, one team I've heard some people advocate for, and I think it's just because they've been doing well in other areas in the sports world, is like Kansas City. The Chiefs doing well. The Royals won a World Series a while back. Why not put a little NBA team in there and see? I mean, that's a passionate fan base. We know about when people go into Kansas City or into Arrowhead, it's a tough place to play. So it could be
right
once the arenas open back up, that could be an interesting spot as well.
That's great.
Before we move off the NBA and dive a little bit more further into the Big 3, got a little brother-to-brother action tonight with Zoe and Melo. Just want to hear your thoughts on – let me just hear your thoughts on Melo first, how he's kind of growing to his rookie season. Have you watched a lot of Melo? Have you watched a lot of the Charlotte Hornets?
I watch a lot of Melo since Ball in the family. Big fan, big supporter. Big supporter. I believe Melo is one of the more eccentric players. flashy, free players in today's league. I think amongst the rookies, he's doing pretty well. His numbers have went up. So there was an interesting stat that came out to go scoreless in your debut. I think Hasheem Thabit and a couple, I think Greg Oden and then somebody else doing scoreless in their debut. And so, debut, excuse my language. But and so now people were like, oh, will he become one of those picks, those top 3 picks who didn't pan out? Okay, now he's getting dubs. Now he's having fun. Now he's playing the game right, which I always knew he could do. Even if you watch, again, he played in Australia at 18. So you talk about he's been a pro since 16. So this isn't new to him. And I think it's good for the Ball family, the more publicity. Jello's back in the league. I have an interesting theory on them. But with that being said, I wish fans weren't loud in the stands. I wish LeVar and Tina could actually come to the game, some big baller brand. That would have been nice to see. But I know it's good for the league. It's good for numbers. It's just good for the family, period. So I'm excited to see them go at it tonight. And who comes out with the win? The Pelicans might because of their team, but it's good. It's just going to be good overall. So.
Hayward coming off a career high. So where we're going with this next. What's the theory?
The theory is that Lonzo doesn't sign he didn't sign that extension with the Pelicans. He goes over to Charlotte, and then Jello comes with the Greensboro Swarm, and now all the Ball brothers are in Charlotte.
I believe that. I'm signing on to that. I agree. LeVar said that. I think LeVar was on with, which I know Mikey as well, Mikey Domagala. I think he said that was the plan. So, I don't know. Right. I don't know how, Lonzo and LeVar have butt heads in the past. So I don't know what their current strategies. I don't know how they align right now, but I could definitely see that.
Right. So them in the East will be definitely for TV. LeBron's. I don't even like thinking about LeBron retiring because I don't even like talking about it, thinking about it. Like, it's really a problem for me. But once he's out the league, now the league is looking for who's next. So you look how they lined up the Christmas games. I think they put Zion on Christmas. They're trying to find that next. And so now I think if you put the Ball family in, it's a wrap.
Yeah, that's funny that you bring that too, because I agree with you. They definitely were trying to find that next guy, and I think they were trying to make Zion that next guy.
Zion or Luka?
Luka could be it. Luka because of skill, but I don't know. It's the pizzazz LeBron had. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Luka's from a skill standpoint, he's the next, but I just wonder from a pizzazz. They're trying to make Zion that, but can he? I think he could be. So why don't you think he could be?
Well, it's not that I don't think he could be. I will say this. I think it sucked that he went to New Orleans, to the Pelicans. Yeah. And, no offense, but, when you have the opportunity to go to, I forget what the 3 teams were. One of them was New York. That would have been absolutely electric. And then I forget what the third team was, but the Pelicans was I don't want to say worst case scenario because, their fans absolutely deserve to win. But, I don't know. It's just not really a storied franchise. And I just feel like in the West, it's never good. I mean, we talked about how the NBA ratings have just plummeted since LeBron went out West because everyone on the East Coast goes to sleep. And LeBron's been in the East his entire career. So, I absolutely think, I think the jury's still out on Zion. But I think that if you're the NBA, I really think that maybe you didn't prepare for it, you didn't see it coming or not. But I think this Trae-Luka rivalry, if Atlanta can be a serious contender around Trae and Luka, which we know Dallas knows what they're doing from an organizational standpoint, if that can be the next, how the Lakers and the Celtics went at it in the 80s, if that can be the 2020s version of that, I think that would be incredible. And it's just very funny to see where guys we're not even talking about Giannis, right? Who's 25, just won back-to-back MVP. Where does he fit in all of this? Where does Ja Morant and Zion fit in with all this? This next decade, especially for all this young talent that's coming out, and especially Cade's about to come into the league. Mm-hmm. And then who's the other guy who's going to get drafted in 2 years where they will compare him to KD? I forget his name.
Imani Bates.
Imani Bates. Yeah, Imani Bates is apparently supposed to be incredible. So it's just going to be a very interesting decade. And I agree with you. They're 100% looking for, who's the next face of the league? Who's going to take over for LeBron? But it might be another early 2000 situation where after MJ retired,
they're trying to find. It'll be somebody we least expect. Yeah, but it'll be somebody we least expect.
Yeah, because who was Kobe coming out, right? Who was Kobe? He was just a kid, and he ended up being the main guy. But yeah, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no, you're good, but yeah, I think it'll just be somebody that comes from obscurity. I want to see it be a second round undrafted guy. That'd be dope, just for the just for the aesthetics. But I definitely like to see the Ball family be the face of the league, and then LeVar. I told you so. Like I can't wait. I want to see that. But
That'd
I
be
do
awesome.
think they are going to.
He's certainly done a good job so far already. I mean, two of his sons going top 5. You mentioned like pizzazz and stuff, but I was just thinking too, like, could cheekiness, kind of be that new pizzazz? We talk about when you say pizzazz, are you talking like LeBron Duncan, the flashy passes he makes? Because I think guys like Luka and Trey, while they're not going to bring the hammer down on the rim or something, there's still maybe some slight footwork, a little bit of subtleness that makes something great. Whatever the case may be, I think some of that can also be flashy and exciting.
Yeah, I think LeBron's off-court endeavors make him this icon. I got the book in my room. I read it. It's called the Making of the Billion Dollar Athlete. I forgot the Return of the King. I forgot the exact but I think you all know where I'm going with that. Like the $1 Billion Athlete. It was written by Brian Windhorst, and he wrote a good book about how LeBron's off the court thing and how they strategically did it. Like for example, with the Beats deal. He got the Beats endorsement. He gave everybody on that Olympic team. I think they were on the bus on the plane. He said, "Here, wear this." So I think LeBron's team and just that off the court, the way they did it and the way they orchestrated for him to be this marketing savant in a sense. Like he had everybody with the Beats, with the headphones, say, "Here, everybody take one. Everybody gonna see us." Because big headphones were back then, about 2012, I believe. Everybody had the big headphones, and I think Mav Carter told him to give I don't know the exact story, don't quote me on it. He gave everybody the Beats headphones and was like, "Wear this. Do this." So the way Braun was very orchestrated in his marketing, that for some reason brought him to be more of an icon type thing. So it's going to be some off the court stuff too. And that's why I feel like the Ball brothers are going to do it with the Big Baller brand. I feel like that's going to be the off the court stuff is what's going to get them to that next level. So it's just on all fronts because it's just not all basketball anymore. I got a chance to speak to somebody in Puma. I'm not going to quote. And we just talked about how, like, it's not all basketball. You have a basketball, even the endorsements are going to change. The endorsement deals are going to change. Just looking at the way, just you have a basketball shoe doesn't mean things are good for you. It doesn't mean you're this marquee player. You're going to get more endorsement money based on the lifestyle. Kyle Kuzma is going to make a lot of money off the court because he brings a lifestyle of swagger. And he's half the player, no disrespect to him, to a lot of these bigger name guys, but when you talk about off the court and lifestyle, he has a bit more of an aura and a bit more of a presence. So
like your SGAs, like Kelly Oubre, you think just because they don't – I mean, SGA is an ascending player, don't get me wrong, but you think because even though they're not at the level of, let's say, like a Giannis or LeBron, because they bring something off the court that makes them one of the – okay.
Yeah, so like with Michael, with MJ, the off the court stuff. So it's just going to be a big it's going to be all hell. It all has to connect well. Interesting.
I like it though, and I definitely think Zion might be. At least that's the guy they're trying to make the guy. He's definitely been in a couple commercials, playing on marquee games on holidays, big games. So certainly exciting season so far, and we'll continue to see how it plays out. Want to transition a little bit to the Big 3 here. First, what's your interest in the Big 3? How long have you been following the league?
I mean, I've been following it since the start. I don't know the specific, I don't even know the teams, but I do know it's a way for players to get back in the league. And I will tell you this, I've always thought that the Big 3 should be a prerequisite before signing with an NBA team, on the fact that the workouts are cool, but you want to see these vets and runs. And the G League bubble may never happen again. Or you say the G League for the guys who are getting drafted, the drafted staff, the undrafted players. But the Big 3 should definitely be a prerequisite as far as getting back to the NBA because it's live runs. You may have to add – it may have to be a full league thing where it's 5-on-5, and that may be more tiring on the vets. But that court is long. When you're playing 3, that's a long court. So you can make it 5-on-5, and then you make that a prerequisite going back into the NBA for guys who may have been out a year or two, or just guys with different stories and stuff. And I think so. When is the Big 3 season, man? When is it?
Well, it was supposed to return here in 2021 during the summer. We're still waiting a word. One of the co-founders, Jeff Quanowitz, has come out and said that he's got some exciting news for a great summer. So hopefully it looks like they're expecting for it to return this summer.
Right. So I know for the summer, That's usually summer league time, so that's the perfect time. But I think definitely it should be a prerequisite as far as getting back to the league for certain players.
It's funny that when you talk about the Big Three, that's the first thing you bring up because I tend to agree with you. But there really is a school of thought of people who feel that the Big Three should really, I don't want to say exclusively, but primarily be for guys who maybe played in the NBA, guys like the Joe Johnson or like the Allen Iverson or the Baron Davis, who don't really have any hopes or expectations of a return to the NBA, but they're just still looking for an outlet to play in front of fans. So what is it about the Big Three that makes you automatically say, oh, that's something that, is a platform for people or maybe young guys or guys from different backgrounds to make it to the NBA?
Because when you look at when you're looking at different NBA, you look at those guys you just named. To be honest, they're 33, 34, 35, some 32, some 36. That is young when you think about it.
That's
so
true.
so I don't care if they're 34 and they play in the NBA and they're done. They're still that elite athlete in a sense. And so to have a guy who's 24, who probably got kicked out of college and he had to go overseas real quick and he's like, I need to find a league to play in, just show NBA scouts that I could be a prospect. Send them to the Big Three. I mean, why not? They're former NBA players. Everybody doesn't have to try to return to the NBA, but I think it should be a basketball community for guys who are just looking for that outlet just to get that thrill. And also it should be a prerequisite as far as getting to the league and just a chance for even overseas scouts, just more opportunities. So I think overall it should just be one of those things.
Yeah, I like that. I think that the Big 3 too should, as it continues to grow, I think it'd be a great thing to be kind of that showcase for the younger guys. Like you said, someone who's kicked out of college, but I think you could even take the route of, maybe a guy who's been in the G League for a long time. Let's say someone like Christian Wood. Like someone like Christian Wood is in the G League for a long time and they're just frustrated. They're like, man, I've been trying to go to the NBA with the same outlet time and time again, and I've yet to succeed. Now, fortunately for him, he succeeded. So they shift over to the Big 3, kind of have a huge season, and then a lot of teams look at them like, I really believe that the Big 3 could be that platform or different path for different guys like that, for a younger crowd, not just the older guys that we've seen play in the NBA for a long time. So hopefully we see that, they implemented these new rules and they have yet to be able to use them yet. And I think that's the part I'm most excited about 2021. That being said, I wanted to do a little bit of start, sit, cut with some of the Big 3 guys. I think that just kind of going into 2021 year, I've been missing it a little bit, and I feel like we'll just kind of go through. Will hasn't heard these names either, so we'll just kind of go start, sit, cut based on Big 3 seasons, not their season in the NBA, but based on what they've done in the Big 3. So let's start with the first one. I think this will be kind of entertaining. Start, sit, cut. Frank Nitti, Mike Taylor, Nate Robinson.
How old is Frank Nitti?
I want to say he's about 30, 31. Yeah, I mean, he's still pretty young there.
I'm cutting Mike Taylor.
Ooh.
I'm starting Nate Robinson. He could put up a good fight, no pun intended, despite what happened. And is it? I guess I'll bench Frank Nitti.
Okay. Will, how you feeling about that? Fourth man of the year.
Man, I know. Well, right. So Nate literally just won an award for the NBA, so I can't cut him. Mike played great off the bench for Ghost Ballers, and you know how I
There's
feel
a
about
debate
Mike
that he
Taylor.
might have been. He could have probably been the fourth man of the year.
Right. I agree with you, and I think Mike played great in the 5 tournament, but we're not talking about the 5 tournament. We're talking about the Big 3. So I think if you're telling me Mike Taylor, I think he's primed for a big sophomore season, but I'm going to go with starting Frank Nitti because I think he was incredible on that Killer Threes team that made the championship. I'm probably going to bench Nate Robinson because he just won the best bench player award, and I think I'm cutting Mike Taylor.
Oh, good friend of the show too. That one
pains me to say. I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with you, Will. I think I'm starting Frank, benching Nate, and I don't even want to say the words, but cutting Mike Taylor there. Let's talk this one. I think this is another group of guards here, group of wing players. Start, sit, cut. Mario Chalmers, Will Bynum, Ricky Davis.
I'll start Mario.
Okay.
He was obviously a good for that Miami team. I'll bench Will Bynum. I'll cut Ricky Davis.
OG Ricky Davis. Well, you
think-
agree with that one, or?
I think I got to start Will Bynum. Just the way that he played in 2019. I mean, he looked like he was an MVP candidate in the making. I think if it wasn't for Joe Johnson having such a crazy year, Bynum really came into his own. I mean, he broke the record for the most big 3 points in a game. I think it was like 30, 31, 32. So you got to go with that 30. Yeah. So I got to start Will. Bench, besides last year where Ricky Davis really played more of like a mentor coach role, he was one of the best scorers in the Big 3.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, Ghost Ballers never really capitalized on it, but I think he's making my bench. And Mario Chalmers, the only reason I'm cutting Mario Chalmers is, I've been very vocal about it. I thought he played great for Three-Headed Monsters, and I thought especially defensively he was very good. But again, that's only one season compared to, Ricky Davis's 2. So if I'm benching Ricky, then I got to cut Mario.
Yeah, those are great points because, like you said, Ricky Davis was one of the premier players in the Big 3 last year. He kind of took a step back. And I still think he was effective last year. So I think, that's tough too. Mario came on strong at the end of the season, Three-Headed Monsters. Like you said, Will Bynum had a great season with Big 5. Yeah, I think I'm going to start Will Bynum. Man, I guess I'm going to –
You picked some good ones.
I was trying to make them good, as good as I can, and make them tough even on myself here. So I think I'm going to start Will. I'm going to bench Mario Chalmers, and I'm going to cut Ricky Davis. I'll just cut 2 Ghost Ballers. So probably not going to be sitting on the sidelines with them.
We are never getting interviewed with Ghost Ballers
again. All right, final one. We'll go with Season 1 MVP, Rashard Lewis. Defensive Player of the Year last year in Amari Stoudemire, and a Big 3 MVP in Season 2 in Corey Maggette. Start, sit, cut.
Starting Corey Maggette.
Like that.
I'm benching Damon. And who was the last one?
Rashard Lewis, Amari Stoudemire, Corey Maggette.
Oh, man, that's hard. I like Rashard Lewis. I like Maggette and all that stuff. Oh, man, so I'm going to have to cut I don't want to cut Maggette, so I'm starting Maggette. Amari Stoudemire. Okay, I'll cut Rashard Lewis because I don't want to do it, but I'll have to cut Rashard.
Man, I'm sure he probably wouldn't be okay with it, but, we don't got to tell him that. Will?
I mean, I think, call it recency bias, but I think you got to start Amari. I mean, reigning Defensive Player of the Year, but also one of the top scorers last season.
Yeah,
and it doesn't hurt him that he's one of the assistant coaches on my favorite team. So I think I'm starting Amari, especially the way, if anything, I'm starting Amari just for what he's done for Jared Allen this season. So I'm starting Amari just for that. Bench, it's between Corey Maggette and Rashard Lewis. 2 guys who I would say probably both came back from major injuries, both played at a very high level, 2 MVPs. So, they're so even. They're on such a razor-thin margin. I got to give it to the guy with the ring. So I think I'm going to bench Corey Maggette and then cut Rashard Lewis. Ooh, but that is such I cut Rashard Lewis is something that should never happen in real life.
And you're right about Stoudemire. I mean, recency bias and all. He was good last year, and he was good in Season 2. But I think I'm going to take a page out of your book when it comes to someone who's done it every single year. And I think Rashard, for that reason, I think Rashard at least is staying rostered. Just about where I'm putting him is the problem, and who I'm flipping in for that. That being said, I think I would start Stat 2. I like what he brings me on both sides. And then I think I'm going to bench Sweet Lou and cut Maggette. That one's hard too.
That's a tough one.
To say I'm going to cut Corey Maggette, someone who felt like every time he played, he was scoring at least 16 to 16 to 24 points. That's almost half the points in the league, if not a third. So those are the 3 I had. I think we made some reasonable decisions. Like I said, I don't think Ghost Ballers is ever going to like us again.
No,
but
we've burned that bridge.
And excited for the league to come back. Hopefully we'll get to see some of those guys playing in 2021. Isaiah, last thing before we get going here, got to ask you about the Cut the Debt podcast. What you got going for it? how long have you been doing it, and what do you have planned in the future?
Well, I know I started in 2018. I just had an opinion. I just found a way to record it. And I've been going since. I know if you go on Cut the Deck, go type in Cut the Deck podcast on SoundCloud. Those are my early episodes. I was trying to be like the guy who like interviews like the upcoming music artists. And then I would talk some sports and I would talk some life. But now I was like, man, let me just stick with the sports, the passion. I guess I felt I would blow up faster on those type of things because like when you stick with what you love, good things tend to come out of it. So I started in my sophomore year of college, and we had a radio room in the middle of my old school. And so people just like laugh a little bit, like what you doing? And then now the things are definitely taking a change as far as the production's getting better, the guests, just the following, the support. And so now people are definitely, I'm getting those different looks. I'm like, yeah, I told you. So even though I haven't done anything like substantial, but people are definitely starting to spin the block and like, oh, like, okay, I see what you're doing and I see it's going somewhere. So like you definitely like the bandwagoners from that standpoint, but I'm having fun I'm just creating right now. And so when I started my sophomore year of college, I'm now a senior at Mercer University. And so I think right now I'm just trying to grow and hopefully become a media personality for one of these entities. So I'm just looking to keep growing. So therefore, if I walk into a meeting, there's leverage on my side instead of me just taking some crappy deal and like, hey, I have a following, I have a substantial fan base. And so, okay, now let's talk. And so it's just growing this. And as far as things planned, just to keep having more guests. And I got my template set out, my Cut the Deck template. And so now I think it's just a matter of I gotta get a new laptop so I can get like my Zoom. I gotta get a Mac or something. So like my Zoom calls, I can put them in, just kind of like what you all are doing, and just get some visuals on YouTube. So I think that's the next step: get some visuals on YouTube and just trying to keep growing from there. But we're already on every platform you can get your podcast on.
Dope. Yeah, and I respect the process a lot. You gotta make some of those people who don't believe in you just eat their words. And that's interesting that you're on SoundCloud. We talk about the era of SoundCloud rappers. I wonder if like one day we look back and one day it's like the SoundCloud podcasters, just like early ages of your episodes. I think that's dope. And I would continue to run, as you're telling people about this, as you continue to grow, continue to mention that, because I think that's a cool aspect of how you continue to grow and where you'll be at. It just makes the story a little bit better. But for those that are listening or watching, where can they find your work? Where can they, go on social media and follow you and make sure they can get updates on everything you're doing?
Yeah, well, my Instagram is my first and last name. So if you just Isaiah_Efojie. And if you go to my Instagram TV, I have analysis, breakdowns, interviews. I just have a lot of my body work is on my Instagram TV. Because it's like a one-stop shop. Who wants to go from Instagram to YouTube to Snapchat to you're on Instagram, just go to my page, go to my Instagram TV. And as far as the podcast goes, you go on every platform you find your podcast, whether it be Google Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, everything, Anchor. So Cut the Deck podcast is available on every platform you can imagine. But I also have a lot of my body of work where I have 30, 40 videos on my Instagram TV. So
Word. That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on today, chopping it up, talking a little hoops with us, and we're going to continue to follow what you're doing and have to do this again sometime, hopefully when the season's in session.
All right. Thank you, man. Let's keep connecting.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
100p.
All right, guys. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Isaiah from Cut the Deck podcast. Super exciting stuff happening in basketball, from the NBA to the G League to the Big 3, even to the TBT. So it's a super exciting time to be a fan of the sport. A little bit of a NBA heavy interview, but I'm assuming that everybody who loves the Big 3 also loves the NBA. I mean, how can you not, right? So it's just always fun just to talk about basketball. I mean, with the 2020 that we had when we didn't know when basketball was returning, I'll talk about, girls, wheelchair basketball. You know what I mean? At this point, I mean, exactly. My God, I'm just happy sports are back. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I appreciate everybody who listens. Anthony and I really do. We appreciate everybody on YouTube. Thank you guys. Shout out you guys. Everybody listening to it for the first time on Dash, Nothing But Net channel. Shout out you guys. Everyone else, podcast. Thank you guys. We will see you next episode. Did I say thank you enough? I believe I did.